Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and first up on today's edition of Commanders News and Rumors, there is an article linking Garrett Wilson to the Washington Commanders. Garrett might be asking for a trade out of New York this offseason. I'll be discussing the possibility of Wilson being traded to the Washington Commanders this offseason. Make sure you guys stick around because I'm going to be laying out my case for why Dan Quinn should be Coach of the Year in the National Football League here in 2024. Before we get into everything today, help us win the NFC East here at Chat Sports this year. So this is the total amount of new subscribers that every single channel in the NFC East here at Chat Sports has gotten here during the last 365 days. The Eagles and Cowboys are currently ahead here at just over 18,000, but we are just 220 subscribers away from taking the gold here at Chat Sports for the 2024 year. So ring in 2025 here with a victory here and help us win the NFC East. Click that subscribe button for free and informative Commanders content every single day. So let's start here with a report from Ian Rappaport from NFL Network, who says that Garrett Wilson may request a trade in 2025. He put out a whole article this weekend here a couple days ago breaking down the news, and this is what Rapp had to say about Wilson potentially requesting a trade. Can Wilson coexist with Rodgers if the QB is back, or is a better option to trade Wilson for a huge bounty? What those inside and outside the organization have noticed for much of the season was brought to light this past week. All is not well with Rodgers and Wilson. Privately, there have been questions regarding whether Rodgers and Wilson can find common ground since they had a blow up during training camp. While Wilson will not publicly say it, those who know him well believe he's been frustrated at the lack of looks from Rodgers. And then Bleacher Report tabbed the Commanders as a top destination to trade for Wilson if he does demand out of East Rutherford this offseason. Alex K is the author from Bleacher Report that linked this receiver to the Commanders, and when it comes to that, this is what he had to say. One of Washington's most glaring issues is a lack of reliable receiving weapons outside of Terry McLaurin, a void that Garrett Wilson could instantly fill. The Commanders would be foolish not to at least inquire about Wilson's availability. Now listen, man, I think if you put Terry McLaurin, who in my opinion is a top 5, maybe even a top 10, maybe even top 5 receiver in football right now, he's proven that this year with the production he's had with Jaden Daniels, and you put Garrett Wilson, another Ohio State product, on the other side of him, with Jaden Daniels throwing those guys the rock, I mean, this offense is going to go to the moon. Absolutely. This combination would be absolutely dangerous here in the nation's capital. However, I think Adam Peters, he might, call the Jets, see what they want for him, but I think they're going to want a little bit too much, and I think that they're going to get a bit outbid by some of these other teams in the league that are more desperate for wide receiver help, like the New England Patriots, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, like other teams, the Los Angeles Chargers, for example, who might be willing to give up a first-round pick or maybe even more than a first-round draft pick to get Garrett Wilson's services. But with Terry McLaurin likely getting a new contract extension this offseason, I'm not sure if Peters is going to let go of that first-round pick to bring Wilson to the nation's capital this spring. And the same thing goes for T. Higgins. I think that there's going to be other teams that are going to want to pay more money for Higgins' services, like the Chargers, like the Steelers, like the Patriots, the other teams that we mentioned. And, Higgins would be a number 2 receiver here in Washington. Terry McLaurin is that number 1 premier receiver. And even though he's getting a little bit older, like I said, I think they're going to want to give that money to Scary Terry versus giving that money to T. Higgins, who's probably going to be making upwards of $33 million on his next contract wherever he lands this offseason. So my prediction here for Washington is that although they may address the wide receiver position, it's going to be more of the supplementary wide receivers. I think that they're going to continue with Scary Terry as their premier number 1 receiver. They're going to give him that extension. They're going to really focus their energies on the offensive line and the cornerback rooms this offseason. That's where they're going to put most of their cap resources and most of their resources in the draft. But speaking of the draft here, I think that they could draft a young, up-and-coming wide receiver because somebody at some point is going to have to take over for Scary Terry McLaurin at wide receiver 1. And why not get an up-and-coming receiver on a rookie contract to not only work in tandem with Scary Terry, but also potentially even replace him as a future number 1 receiver when Terry eventually ages out. And somebody to keep your eye on here is Jaden Daniels' former college teammate, Kyren Lacy, who is draft eligible this year. And I think that would be a ton of fun. They obviously already have that connection together with they did a lot of good stuff there at LSU, man. Obviously, they had Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors that final season when Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy last year in college football. But Kyren Lacy was just a part of the mix as some of those other receivers as well. I would love to see Lacy here with the burgundy in gold if the Commanders can end up landing him, say, on day 2. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you trade a first-round pick for Garrett Wilson? Type T if you would trade that first-round selection for Wilson's services, or type P if you would pass on Garrett Wilson to take an offensive lineman, a cornerback, maybe Kyron Lacey. Let me know down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. When YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a second, and also we're going to be telling you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And while I'm talking about PrizePicks, go down there, find that pinned comment at the top of the comment section, and let me know, would you trade a first-rounder for Garrett Wilson? With that, let's have word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks, which is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone this football season. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus, guys. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So it's super easy to play here, guys. You guys can see this example promotion here with PrizePicks, this projection where you're taking the more on the receiving yards for Tyler Lockett at 22.5 receiving yards, and I'm taking the less on Josh Jacobs rushing yards at 73.5. That's all you got to do, guys. Just 2 player stat projections, more or less, for a chance to get some money with our friends at PrizePicks. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. It's right down there in the bottom right of your screen. CLNS is the promo code to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, and use promo code CLNS when you download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, run your game. Shifting over to my argument here that I think the Commanders head coach, first-year head coach Dan Quinn, deserves to at least be in consideration for NFL Coach of the Year honors this season. Now, I know that there's other coaches in this league that are more than deserving of this award as well. Kevin O'Connell in particular, I think he's going to win the award. He's done a great job with Sam Darnold. It's a very, very well-coached team there in Minnesota. Definitely overperformed the expectations for that squad this year. And then Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, some guys that, found new homes in the NFL that have really done a good job this year. Not a lot of people expected them to be postseason contenders. And, it looks like both of them will be making the playoffs. That is, if the Broncos can get a win this weekend. Then Dan Campbell has done a hell of a job with the Detroit Lions as well, resurrecting the career of Jared Goff. So all these guys are more than deserving as well. But I got a couple reasons why I think Dan Quinn should be in consideration as well. The first reason is that he took this team in 1 year as a first-year head coach from the number 2 pick to 11 plus wins. All right. And just to put that in perspective here, this Commanders team hasn't won 11 or more games in 33 seasons. You have to go all the way back to 1991 when this team won 14 games and went 14-2 before this team got that many wins in a singular season. So this has been a completely franchise-altering hire of Dan Quinn in his first season. And then the other reason why I think he deserves Coach of the Year honors this year is because he was able to execute that remarkable turnaround with very limited resources in terms of overall roster talent. And, some of those, limited resources is that you had to do it with a rookie quarterback. Yes, Jaden Daniels is sensational and he's super talented, but he also had to provide that young quarterback a great foundation and a great offensive play caller in Cliff Kingsbury to get the most out of him. Caleb Williams is a hell of a talent. Look at how he's doing in Chicago because he didn't have the right infrastructure around him. Dan Quinn provided that for Jaden Daniels, and that's why he's having such a good season this year. Also, they've had a below-average offensive line. You can even say it's a bad offensive line compared to other NFL offensive lines right now, man. I mean, seriously, it's very impressive what this offense has been able to do with what I would consider a below-average offensive line. Also, they have one big-time receiving weapon in Terry McLaurin, and McLaurin's a great player, but most teams with this kind of like high-flying top 5 level of offense have multiple weapons to use, and Terry McLaurin is the only real big-time weapon that this team has. Also, this is arguably the worst cornerback room in football. I mean, Mike Sainristil's been a nice addition, a nice surprise as an outside corner, and, they've only had a game and a half of Marshawn Lattimore, but other than that, they've had guys like Michael Davis, Benjamin St. Toast, Emmanuel Forbes, who ended up getting cut, and yet despite that, they're still around league average in many defensive categories, despite really a below-average overall defensive roster, and that really is a credit to Joe Witt Jr., the defensive coordinator, and of course Dan Quinn, who's very involved in the defensive game planning. Now, like I said, guys, having Jayden Daniels helps in this regard, all right? And Jayden Daniels, you can make an argument, is carrying his team more than any other player in the National Football League today. He has been that good, all right? But Coach Q has led the way, and like I said earlier, he provided that infrastructure for Daniels to come into this league year one and dominate the way that he has. So Coach Quinn absolutely deserves credit, or at least a little bit, for Jayden Daniels' ascension to superstardom here in the National Football League. And because of that, I think he deserves Coach of the Year honors here in 2024. Now, listen, man, I remember here with this fan base, I remember doing the video breaking news here on the Commanders Report when Dan Quinn was hired. And, this fan base was little lukewarm on the hire here. So let's have some fun here. I'm going to take you back to the poll that we did on this channel when Dan Quinn was hired, all right? And you guys can see here that, the kind of feeling in this fan base was that this was just going to be an okay hire. Kind of the feeling was, this is kind of a retread of the Ron Rivera type thing because he was a former head coach. He went to a Super Bowl and lost. Like, there was a lot of similarities between the Dan Quinn hire and the Ron Rivera hire. And I remember this fan base wasn't really jazzed for this hire, but man, Dan Quinn has really come in. And he's shown to be one of the best leaders in football, and he's provided the infrastructure and the culture that I think is going to lead to many years of success here in the nation's capital and hopefully some more Lombardi trophies for the Burgundy and Gold. So you make the call for me down there in the comments section. Should Dan Quinn be Coach of the Year here in 2024? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. Can understand both arguments here. Kevin O'Connell's done a hell of a job this year, but personally, man, I think I might give it to Coach Q. Thank you guys so much for watching today's show. Make sure you click that subscribe button. Again, we're about 200 subscribers away from winning the NFC East and adding the most subscribers to our channel than any other channel in the NFC East here at Chat Sports. If you want to help us out today, click that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in 2025.